What is going on, folks? Mike Singer, Tyler Horka from the Blue and Gold YouTube channel with a new video, just talking about something that Notre Dame fans are very passionate about, and that is the Fighting Irish's apparel situation. There was a report last month that, hey, the Under Armour deal is up soon, and will Notre Dame keep it? Will they look elsewhere? Tyler Horka sat down with Notre Dame Athletics Director Jack Swarbrick for an interview on Wednesday. So we're going to hear from Tyler about that, and specifically the apparel update. And folks, you can go to blueandgold.com for the article, and you can hear directly from Swarbrick as well. There's the headline: Under Armour again, Notre Dame AD Jack Swarbrick gives the latest on Irish athletics apparel deal. So again, folks, go to blueandgold.com and check that out. But yeah, Tyler, do you want to kind of give your thoughts on, give us some context on what Swarbrick had to say?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things that you kind of have to get out of the way when you're talking context. It's one, Jack Swarbrick's son, Cal Swarbrick, is kind of a lead marketing agent, I would call him, or maybe even a manager. I'm not sure what his exact job title is, but he's kind of a guy that oversees the relations between Under Armour and some of these collegiate, universities that have apparel deals with Under Armour, Notre Dame being the biggest of those. Some of the others, I would say, I think Auburn, South Carolina, maybe as well. So there's some SEC schools that have Under Armour, and we'll get to the whole conversation of what fans and student athletes and just kind of the general populace thinks about Under Armour. But Jack Swarbrick sat there and he told me, look, this thing is not finished yet. It will be finished in a month. So by the time that Notre Dame begins fall camp at the end of July, they will have another apparel deal in place. Now, look, Under Armour is going to be Notre Dame's supplier this season. It's the final year of that, or maybe even it's through 2024. It slips my mind, but I think they might have 2 more years with Under Armour. But obviously, this is the time to strike a new deal. It could be Nike, it could be Adidas, and then again, it could be Under Armour. And I kind of prodded more on the Under Armour side because it seems like there are some rumblings and some momentum leading toward another deal with Under Armour being signed. Again, I mentioned that Cal Swarbrick is kind of a key figure over there. So people are bringing up conflict of interest. I don't really think it is one because it's not Jack Swarbrick going to Cal Swarbrick and saying, hey, let's sign this thing. As I wrote in my article, and there's 1,000, I think there's like 1,200 words in that thing, and this is only a small part of it. The Notre Dame deal, whoever Notre Dame signs with next, it's a lot bigger than the name Swarbrick, and it's a lot bigger than Under Armour. I mean, this is an apparel company that is going to be putting its logo, as you see right there on those socks and those cleats right there, on the biggest brand in college football, or one of the biggest brands in college football. So what comes with that? Swarbrick told me there needs to be monetary support. I mean, this deal needs to be on the level of what Nike is giving Texas or what Nike is giving Alabama. Nike, fill in the blank, Nike in any school, right? It needs to be on par with that, or maybe even more than that. If people think that Under Armour is some lesser company, then Under Armour can say, okay, we'll show you and give a little bit more money. And then the other 2 things that Swarbrick is looking for is service to the student athletes and to the university. If something goes wrong, if a shipment isn't on time, how are they going to fix it? How are they going to fix, there's a lot of people talking about cleats that aren't up to snuff and maybe causing some injuries and whatnot. So if Under Armour can fix that, Swarbrick is all on board with that. And then the last of those things is, what does Under Armour do for the university as a whole? Does it create commercials? Does it promote the brand? And I think that is a pretty big one right now. Under Armour is really comfortable. It's kind of like Under Armour and Steph Curry. I mentioned that in the article too. Steph Curry is one of the best, biggest names in the NBA. He's got to deal with Under Armour. That's the shoe that he's putting on his foot. Everybody else seems it's Nike or Adidas, right? If Steph Curry is fine with saying, hey, I'm an Under Armour guy, and his brand is promoted and Under Armour's brand is promoted, I think Notre Dame kind of has a similar situation.
Yeah, going to your point about, like this is bigger than Swarbrick, right? You would have to imagine that Pete Bevekwa, Notre Dame's next athletics director, has some say in it. Like you would imagine that this is something that he's involved with too. It's definitely interesting to track. I wanted to get your thoughts on, like, when we do these live shows of Blue and Gold during the offseason, the 2 biggest point of topic that surprise us are always broadcast stuff, and really all year round is broadcast. Like people care so much about the broadcast booth and the apparel stuff. Tim Hyde and I are like, we don't care about that stuff as much. Like, let's talk football. I'm curious, Tyler, as a young person yourself, like, do you think that this is a big deal? Like, do you think that I don't know, Chris Tyree or Braylon James, like some of these guys on the roster are like, man, I really want this to be Nike or Jordan because for me as the recruiting guy, Tyler, it feels like if you have Nike or Jordan, that's a cool thing that you can kind of sell, but it's not like Notre Dame's trotting out and Reebok out there or FUBU. Like it's Under Armour. Yeah, it's not like it's going to be a negative thing for the Irish. Do you have any thoughts on that, Tyler?
Well, for one, I don't know if you can see, but I'm wearing Under Armour right now. The logo's getting lost in the light a little bit there. I love their golf shirts. I mean, I don't really wear Under Armour shoes as much. I'm an Adidas guy. I'm kind of all over the map. I've got Nike stuff. I've got Adidas stuff. I've got Under Armour stuff. Reebok's making a little comeback, Mike. I know you just kind of pooped on them a little bit, but Reebok's kind of coming back. The bottom line, to answer your question, though, is 5 years ago, it mattered a whole lot when Florida was joining Jumpman and Oklahoma was joining Jumpman, and you had that, that logo on your chest. You were like, hey, I'm something. Now there's this thing called NIL, and it has changed everything. And I think there's some people who are falsely saying that the apparel brand goes hand in hand with NIL. It doesn't really. I mean, if you're Oregon and you have Phil Knight and he wants to put some extra money into a collective, then yeah, at that point that matters for recruiting and the talent personnel that you have on your roster. But now a player doesn't have to say, hey, I play for the University of Oklahoma and I've got all this Jumpman stuff. If he's good enough, he's signing with Roback, or, if you're a big golfer, Travis Matthew or Peter Millar or any of these things. Like, that's the kind of cool stuff that kids in their 20s want to wear these days, is the golf pullovers and get that kind of stuff for free. Because the bottom line is, if you're playing for Notre Dame, you're playing for any of these schools, you're going to get apparel for free. And if it's Under Armour, you'll take that. But now with NIL, you can promote your own personal brand and go above and beyond and strike deals with all these other companies if you can, if that's the kind of player you are. So 5 years ago, it was like Nike, man, that's awesome. Now, I think we're living in an age where Under Armour is fine. And then if Jack Swarbrick signs that deal, an extension with Under Armour, as NIL continues to be a thing, and I know some things are going to change with that, but if NIL continues to be a thing, then I think as the years go on, Under Armour, the whole narrative that Under Armour is not up to snuff, I think it becomes less and less important as time goes on.
Tyler Horka, Blue and Gold beat writer. Follow him on Twitter. TB Horka does a fantastic job covering the Fighting Irish, and we're going to continue to get him more on our YouTube channel. Just lastly, and again, folks, blueandgold.com. Tyler, you talked to Swarbrick for a good half hour about Freeman, Andy Ludwig, TV, NIL, Pipavecua, facilities, conference realignment. So tons of good stuff that Tyler will be rolling out from his conversation with Swarbrick. So make sure you lock in at blueandgold.com for that. But the last thing before we get you out of here is, I mean, Swarbrick is got less than a year as Notre Dame's AD. I was curious what it's like interviewing someone who's on their way out, because this interview was scheduled before that news came out, right? So I'm sure you were thinking, am I still going to get to interview him? Because I have now more questions than before. So just what was that interview like, talking to this guy whose days at Notre Dame are numbered?
Well, he seemed relaxed and he seemed kind of comfortable and just fine with things, if that makes sense. Look, he's 69 years old. He's been in this post for 15 years. And this is a job where if you can hold it for, I mean, you see ADs that don't even last 3, 4, 5 years sometimes, just because there's so much going on. You're overseeing such a large operation and Notre Dame is so big. But he seemed relaxed, confident. He kind of looked like a guy who knows that he's on the way out. But then when you pressed him on some of these bigger things, when I asked about apparel and the TV deal and NIL, he seemed like a guy that was still really engaged as well. And I think when you put like an end date on it, and there is no set date right now, but he did tell me he's looking at sometime like toward the end of basketball season. Okay. So think mid-March, he'll hand it over to Pipavecua, and that's that. But he seemed like a guy that really wants to accomplish a lot in the next 9 months.
Yeah.
almost. So really, he's got like 3/4 of a year to do some pretty big things. I mean, if he signs with Under Armour, there's going to be some people who are unhappy. But if one of these big wig guys that reports on the NCAA comes out and says, "Hey, this is a $200+ million deal with Under Armour," then I think a lot of people are going to be like, "Oh, wait, he actually did a really good thing here." And then the TV deal, obviously, and he's just such a big player on the national stage that it was kind of cool to sit in his office. And yeah, you could kind of tell that he's on the way out, but you could also tell that he very much wants the best for Notre Dame, and however long he's here, he's going to strive to get that.
So Bavakwa, is that the pronunciation?
I think it's Bavakwa. I never heard him say it. Maybe there's one of those mnemonic things that we can find. Is it in the email? I don't know. All I know is I went with Bavakwa, and that's kind of what's in my mind now. So how are you saying it?
I was saying Bavekwa, but I like Bavakwa better.
I hope that's what it is, because that's what I've been saying.
Again, folks, that's Tyler Horka. Check out all this stuff over at blueandgold.com. Hit that thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to our channel for more Notre Dame football content. And as always, folks, we will catch you next time.